Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully the stream's starting. Another day in lockdown, and hope you're doing well. I'm here to answer any questions and answers, provide coaching, and just give my thoughts on a variety of topics on leadership, management, and just personal development. Anything that will help you and everybody else move forward and grow. Topic on my mind today is actually ownership. Several perspectives on this. The first one that comes to my mind is the book by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin about, it was called Extreme Ownership. If I'm going to paraphrase what his definition is, and you may then realize why he's calling it extreme ownership, but he's talking about, from a leadership perspective, all responsibility and failure with the leader. The leader owns everything, and there's no one else to blame except the leader. So the leader must acknowledge their mistakes, their failures, and take ownership of them. And they need to develop a plan to hit their goals, to win, basically. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. With this type of style of ownership, the ego needs to be put aside, because if it gets in the way, it's going to interfere with being humble, being vulnerable, all those things you need to do in order to build trust with your team. So I'll give you some examples why you may call this, or why he's called it extreme ownership. If an employee is late getting to work, whose fault is that? Well, by his definition, it's the leader's fault. If the team member doesn't get their job done or does it wrong, whose fault is that? Again, it's the leader. And why is it in these cases? The leader has no one else to blame but themselves. If an employee is late, maybe the expectations weren't set. If an employee doesn't know what to do, maybe the leader didn't provide an opportunity for training or explain it well enough. If someone fails to complete the task, was it made clear when it needed to be done or what needed to be done? Again, if the leader takes the ownership, it ensures that the team can remain on track. That when it comes down to it, you can't rely on everybody else. Eventually, you will need to trust your team, but by taking extreme ownership, the leader ensures that hopefully everything runs smoothly. That the team has built the culture, has built the skills, has built the knowledge, and that whatever the team tackles can be accomplished. Right. So when we say extreme ownership, it's about everything focused on a leader. And I think for some people, this may be too divisive, because, hey, some people think that if something goes wrong, it is, in some cases, it is the other person's fault. That there could be extenuating circumstances, like acts of God, that could have interfered and caused things awry. But by taking the path of extreme ownership, the leader ensures that action is taken. Like, I think the lesson here from myself when I read that book is, we take the stance of extreme ownership because it's not because it's always the right thing to do, but it forces the leader to take action. By owning everything, you ensure that you will take action. That you can't always you can't always rely on someone else to do what's needed to be done. But as a leader, you need to take the responsibility to ensure that not only you do the job, but other people do the job as well. And they need to be put in a position to be able to succeed. So They need to understand what are goals and the objectives. Do they know what the deadline is? What are the milestones they need to hit? What is the problem or issue that we are trying to solve? So as a leader, you need to make sure that your team understands that, or else, again, if you and the team are not aligned, you'll never reach, or the success or accomplishing a goal will never be clear to one another, because you both will have different expectations or different understandings of it. And this is where clear communication and clear alignment is extremely important, right? I think how does it reflect back on your own personal life, right? And I'm not talking about being a leader in a business context or a personal context or social life context. By taking extreme ownership of everything you do, if you've got no one else to, right? Again, irregardless of the circumstances, when it comes down to who takes the action, it's you. That you need to be responsible and dictate your own life. Again, here, for example, this pandemic with COVID-19 or coronavirus. Again, it's out of our control. But you can't let the crisis control or dictate your life. It's how you choose to think about it, how you choose to act during this crisis. Right? Some of us may become insulated and back away from everything and choose not to take action. And it's okay to be scared. It's okay to get worried. But there comes a time when you need to change gears. That, once hopefully things have settled down, emotionally, that is, and mentally, that you need to deal with the situation in a constructive way, right? So now that you're isolated at home, does it give you an opportunity to do things that you may not have time for in the past? Could be maybe household chores, learning a new skill, starting a new hobby. I think it's a great opportunity because it's given you time. And I think it provides an opportunity for you to really review how you view things, and it's an opportunity to change your perspective and frame. That, again, on one hand, you could view it as this pandemic as a negative, but my recommendation is it's time to learn how to switch. I think you need to approach. I think my own philosophy in life is to approach everything with, or think of things that people are doing with a positive intent. So again, I'm going back to the example of, when employees being late. Yeah, it's easy to blame them for being late, but if you think of it with positive intent, maybe they have a reason, right? A very valid reason. Was their child sick? Was there an accident or some other unforeseen circumstance? I think it's human nature to assume the bad or the negative when we encounter something. But again, I believe in how you act, how you feel, how you think depends on your frame set, your mindset. And if you approach everything with the positive intent, I think that this will help you be able to handle things more constructively, be able to view people and deal with them in a more constructive and positive manner. So back to talking about ownership, I talked about like extreme ownership, right? And this was perspective provided in a book by the same name. And again, this is a book I highly, highly recommend. It's helped dictate how I approach and tackle things. Again, I choose to take responsibility for everything and take action. Right? It's kind of the biggest takeaways I've got in that book. That even if it's not my fault or out of my control, it is my responsibility. It is my fault. So this drives me and provides me a way to go forward. And that way to go forward is to take action. So in terms of ownership, when it comes to your team, this is where you need to learn to trust. I think many people, when they get into that leadership position, they were high performers, but solo high performers. Many people get hired or promoted into a leadership position because they did well in their previous job. whether it be they were a good, salesman or a programmer or whatever the case may be. They were doing very well as a solo performer. But when you switch over to a leadership position, that your mindset, your frames need to change again. You are responsible for managing and guiding a group of individuals. And this is where trust is essential. You're going to need to delegate. You're going to need to let go and let other people do the work. I think this is where the importance of authority and autonomy is critical to leading a team. So a lot of people like to use the term empowerment, empowering your team, your staff, employees to act. But I think there's a difference between empowering someone versus giving them the authority and autonomy to act. Empowering someone to do something doesn't mean that they can do it, right? Or giving them the authority and autonomy, I feel that you're explicitly stating that, yes, you have the ability to make the decision and to act upon it. Whereas if you're empowered, that may not necessarily be the case. In terms of how does this relate to ownership from a team perspective, people need to feel ownership over their own decisions, over the things they do. Think about your own experiences. How did you feel when someone told you to do something? Like, were you motivated? Did you buy into whatever they were saying? And think about compared to someone asking you to do something. This is where you have a decision. You can make a decision whether to act or not. That if you decide to act, you own that action. This is where you need to trust your team to be able to act and do the right thing. That you're giving them responsibilities and you're trusting them to execute. Yes, you may expose yourself by, there's a risk of them failing. Of course, that's going to happen, right? There's no such thing as 100% success rate, right? I don't believe in that. I don't believe in perfection, right? People are going to make mistakes, but in terms of thinking of the long term or the infinite game, as termed by Simon Sinek, you need to give people the ability to act and to learn from their failures. And by giving them the authority and autonomy to make decisions and to act, you're giving them the ownership of everything they do. As well, when it comes to like ownership from a team perspective, people respond more positively and better to leaders who are fair and self-sacrificing. These are the type of leaders that people want to follow. And in return, they give their loyalty and their commitment to these leaders. And then in turn, this builds a positive culture that team members will collaborate with each other and contribute to a positive environment. And again, continuing to build and develop that team culture. Again, why is it important to trust or have the ability to trust each other within a team? Again, once people trust, feel safe, the energy that they could have spent worrying or being nervous or being scared or not knowing what to do, it can be refocused. It can be refocused into positive energy that can be used to be constructive, and that they're motivated, enthused to complete tasks. Right. So again, this is why it's trust, and building trust leads to people taking ownership of their own tasks, their own decisions, which in turn leads to a better culture and things getting done successfully. It might be tough to give people this authority and autonomy to act, but again, you need to learn to let go. This is where I mentioned that, at the beginning, where you need to squash that ego, that you need to kick it to the side of the door whenever you're acting. Because if that ego's there, you're going to be selfish and think that you're the only one that can then do everything. That with a big ego, you're going to think you're the best and that everybody's not capable. With a big ego, you're not going to trust. You're not going to delegate. And you're going to remain stuck in that mindset that, you're still the individual performer. When it comes to being a leader, you got to think of yourself as a multiplier, or kind of like a parent. You're there to guide and mentor, to coach, teach your team, like a child, like a parent to a child. But eventually, that child grows up and becomes independent. And as a leader, you need to approach it with the same mindset. You need your team to be able to operate independently without you. Ideally, you ask your team to act and that they make the decision to go forward. And as it progresses, they learn to do things themselves, that they don't have to rely on you. You have the confidence, you have the trust for them to operate independently. This also leads into the centralized model of leadership, right? Again, being decentralized means that you're not micromanaging, that all the direction and the guidance doesn't just come from the top, like the one source. Being decentralized, again, giving the team members the authority and autonomy to act independently, and that they're doing everything in the best interest of the team and of the business or the organization or whatever they're a part of, right? So again, that the centralized model is something I advocate for management style. But again, I've mentioned in the past, there are times, maybe in times of emergencies, that a micromanager may be required. So how else do you build ownership or a feeling of ownership amongst the team? Another thing you need to do when you need to build trust and confidence in your employees is you have them teach and train others. Right? On one hand, it helps them reinforce things that they've learned, and to be able to teach something is one way to do that. But on the other hand, it shows how much confidence and trust that you have in that person on your team to be able to train and coach or mentor another person. So maybe a new team member gets onboarded, and you delegate responsibility to another person to help bring that to onboard the person by teaching them uh, the ins and outs of their position, the tasks they need to accomplish, the culture of the organization of the team. So this is where again you can build the ownership amongst your team by delegating, training, and mentoring and teaching to other members of the team, so that they can again not only build their own knowledge but build their own confidence as well. So I talked about kind of two thoughts on ownership today. I talked about the extreme ownership, where you can adopt in order to take action and force yourself to take action. And then there's the team ownership. How you go about to building ownership amongst the team? So I think a common thread amongst these two um, flavors of ownership is communication. Right, it's communication between yourselves and the team, and with other people, right? And communication also means feedback. This is important because again, we sometimes we think we know what we're doing, but without feedback we cannot course correct. Feedback tells us if we're going down the right path or we need to make adjustments. Communication with other people ensures that your expectations are set, goals are aligned, that people understand deadlines. People understand what the deadlines are, or what the expectations are, what the milestones are. Again, I believe in communication as being one of the cornerstones of being a strong leader and building a strong team. Right. So I think you may be thinking, well, it's easier to say than to do. But again, you need to approach things with a positive intent, right? Things will never change if you never try. So what I believe in is, in order to start building that ownership in yourself and amongst your team, again, you need to approach things with positive intent. In other words, just with an open mind, and you need to commit to wanting to improve. That you need to improve. Right? That we cannot remain stagnant. Right? That change is good for us. That feeling uncomfortable means that you are growing. If you come into as a leader, if you come into a situation where you feel that the people cannot be changed or the culture is toxic, you have to believe that things can be improved. Right? Uh, the journey of, again, I'm saying the same uh, thing, but the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. You don't know if you don't try. And I think I'm sorry to say, sometimes it's hard to remain motivated, to remain focused and committed, but you need to do that, right? So that's one of the challenges of being a leader. That there is a component where you need to have strong. You need to be strong mentally, right? That also, as well, you can't let your emotions um, uh, dictate all of your decisions, like how you act. You need to, I believe that you need to remain calm, think things through logically. I'm not saying that you have to be a robot and remain emotionless, but it, I would say in general, in all aspects of your life, it's not good to make decisions, or big decisions anyways, when you're in a charged emotional state. So you need to, clear and level-headed when making these decisions. So when you're coming into this, what you may think is a bad situation, that you need to try, right? And you have to approach things with a positive intent. People may be acting in a certain way because um, uh, just the personal experiences that you had no control over. That maybe their previous manager was a micromanager, or very negative in terms of their feedback. Well, it's your opportunity to make a statement, to change things. Right? Again, you need to make small increments in order to change the culture, to change the team. And how do you do that? I think number one is, I think I've already been talking about it, is like you need to work on yourself, right? Like you got to build the mindset and the perspective and the frame that you can do something positive, and that you will do something positive to improve the culture and the team. Also, you got to think about how you come across, right? So make sure, because your team will be watching you, they will mimic your behavior, right? And the culture is really dependent on that. That you need to conduct yourself ethically, you need to remain calm and in control, that you need to maintain open lines of communication. um, Again, communication can take the form of formal and informal. Formal being, you have those meetings and one-on-ones, whereas informal could be just like, I call them the water cooler chats, where you just walk by and have a casual conversation. I also encourage uh, events or get-togethers outside of a formal context, again, to build those relationships. I feel that people bond better with events or get-togethers outside of a formal or work context, and this will translate back into the from a social context into the business context or the formal context. So again, you need to work on yourself first, and then second is, um, this is where you start working on the team. That again, when I talked about communications, this is where you're actually having them with your team. Again, setting expectations, making things known to them. Again, being clear so that everyone is aligned and knows what you're working towards, so that everybody can work towards that same goal as well. Right. So there's two things. Again, you're entering into a very maybe a toxic culture, a bad culture. Again, you have to commit to that change. And I spoke of two things. You need to work on yourself, and then that's when you start working on the team, right? Um, I'm not saying it's a quick fix or an easy journey. And this is where patience come into the picture as well, right? But I'm always saying miracles don't happen overnight. You need to put in the work and the effort, the blood and sweat to get things done, right? And nothing of value ever gets done without putting some sweat and hard work into it, right? And it's the same for you as a leader, right? Again, I talk about most of the things I talk about are from a business or organizational context, but it applies to your personal life as well. That you are a leader in your family, maybe in your social circles, and maybe volunteering in an organization, whatever it may be. That the leader is not the use of a leader is not constrained to like a business or a company or organization like that. All right. Again, the leader, I see them as a multiplier. That if you were to do everything by yourself, like things could possibly get done, but it's much more efficient and using the synergies of a group of people working together, you're going to achieve much better results, right? And this is why a leader is essential. They're also essential because there's someone that needs to help teach and train other people, right? Like I talked about the analogy of a parent, right? You're the parent and you're helping your kids grow to become independent, and maybe when they grow up they'll be leaders, and then this is where that multiplier effect goes, right? It's exponential, I think, right? You build, as one leader builds like several leaders, and then same thing with these leaders, so it keeps growing, right? And then we're able to collaborate better and work together more efficiently and get things done, right? And hopefully it just keeps going and going, right? And that's kind of what drives me, because I'm a firm believer that leadership is something that's been um, I don't want to say lacking, but it hasn't. Sometimes I feel it isn't as developed in some places that it should be, right? And they're essential in order to grow certain things, right? Like the business organization or the social group or whatever the case may be, right? So leaders are essential. There's so many things that a leader does, but um, with these, hopefully with these Facebook lives, we're just giving you a little insights into things that or the importance of leaders in your own life, following leaders as well as being a leader, right? That this is just one aspect of your life. I'm sure there's so many things, but hopefully I can bring you insight into this one thing. Um, Again, I touched upon the uh, different facets of ownership today, about the extreme ownership where you are responsible for everything, which in turn leads you to taking action. And then I talked about the team ownership, where how do you go about building it, why it's important, empowerment versus autonomy and authority, um, putting your ego aside, giving people the trust and responsibility of training and teaching others, why people on team taking ownership is important. Touched on quite a few subjects today. So hopefully it brought something of a little bit of value to you. Um, I'm going to continue with these Facebook Labs on a weekly basis. Hopefully, you'll visit me and feel free to ask me any questions, right? Or maybe I can coach you on something. And what I want to do is provide you an action you can take away that can bring you some benefit as well, right? So please let me know. Um, I think I've almost hit my 30-minute mark. Again, thanks again for watching. You can hopefully I'll see you soon on my next Facebook Live. All right. Take care. Have a good one.